the river roared. Not the gentle lullaby it sang at dawn, when women in indigo wrappers balanced calabashes on their heads and waded into the shallows to fetch water for the day's cooking. Not the quiet chuckle it made beneath the baobab roots at twilight, when children dared each other to cross on stepping stones slick with moss. No, this was a different river, a hungry river, a river that had tasted blood before and remembered the flavor. The night was thick with the smell of wet earth and the sharp tang of crushed yew leaves where someone had run through the sacred grove. The moon, swollen and yellow as a yam, cast long shadows across the bank. And there, in the mud, lay a child, naked, shivering, his tiny body trembling like a leaf in a storm. His skin, once the color of sun-kissed kola nut, now glistened with a strange, unnatural gold. Not paint, not oil, gold, as if the sun itself had been poured into his veins and hardened. He coughed, a wet, broken sound. Then, from the water's edge, a ripple, not from the wind, not from fish. This ripple pushed against the current. The reeds bent backward. The surface split, and a hand emerged, long fingers, dark as midnight, webbed at the tips, dripping with water that glowed faintly green. It reached for the child, and the child, no older than 3, perhaps 4, opened his eyes. Golden irises like molten coins fixed on the hand. He did not scream, he did not cry. He spoke. "You cannot take me," he whispered, his voice clear as a bell struck in a silent forest. "I am his son. I carry the spoon." The river hissed. The hand paused. Then, from the depths, a voice, deep, ancient, layered like the roots of the oldest iroko tree, spoke not in any tongue of man, but in the language of water, wind, and stone. Yet the child understood. The spoon was never yours to keep. Child of the house that stole, it was borrowed, and now the debt is due. The hand closed around the child's ankle, and the child, still golden, still silent, let out a single, high wail, not of fear, but of recognition. Then the river sucked him under. The reeds snapped back, the water stilled. The night returned to its usual hush, but the mud where the child had lain was empty. No footprints. No struggle, as if he had never been. Only a single object remained, a small, ornate spoon, forged of pure gold, its handle carved into the shape of a coiled python. It lay half buried in the silt, catching the moonlight like a curse. And from the village beyond the grove, a woman began to scream. 3 years earlier, the village of Ogudu had been at peace. Nestled between the whispering jungles and the great river Omu, Ogudu was a place where the sun rose over the red clay huts, where the smell of smoked fish and fermented cassava filled the morning air, and where the elders gathered beneath the ogbo tree to settle disputes with proverbs older than memory. The child who refuses to listen to the elders will one day eat the bitter leaf alone, old Mama Neka would say, her voice like dried palm fronds in the wind. And she was right. The village lived by the rhythm of the river. It gave them fish, water, and life. It also took. A child drowned every 7 years. A woman lost to the current during the rainy season. A man who dared swim at midnight, chasing a dream of treasure never seen again. But the people accepted it. The river was not evil. It was alive. It had its own will, its own laws, and its laws were not written in books. The chief of Ogudu, Oba Eze, was a man of quiet strength. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like polished onyx, he ruled not with fear, but with wisdom. He had 3 wives, but only one son, Kofi, a boy of 12, sharp-tongued and quick to argue. Kofi believed the old ways were superstition. He mocked the river rituals. He laughed when the priest, Baba Ife, poured libations to the water spirits before the fishing season. "The river is just water," Kofi would say, kicking a stone into the shallows. "And the spoon? Just a story to scare children." Ah, the spoon. The golden spoon was not a myth. It was real. Passed down through generations, hidden in a chest beneath the chief's hut, wrapped in red cloth and guarded by a curse. It was said to have been forged by the River Mother, a spirit who once walked among men as a woman with hair like reeds and eyes like deep pools. She gave the first spoon to the first chief of Ogudu as a blessing, a sign that the river would provide, that the people would never hunger. But the spoon had a price. Every 7 years, the spoon must be returned to the river, not thrown, not dropped. Placed in the current at midnight during the new moon with a chant, a sacrifice, and the blood of a firstborn child. Not to kill, but to bless. A drop. Just a drop. A covenant. If the ritual was not performed, the river would take what was owed. Not just a life, everything. For generations, the chiefs had obeyed. The spoon was returned. The river calmed. The people thrived. But Oba Eze's father, in his final years, had grown greedy. Why give back what is ours? He'd muttered, clutching the spoon in his wrinkled hands. We have used it well. We have fed the people. Let the river wait. And so he kept it. That year, the river did not rise as it should. The fish vanished. The women's calabashes came back empty. Crops withered. A child drowned in knee-deep water, pulled under by unseen hands. The elders whispered, "The river is angry. The spoon must be returned." But Oba Ez, now chief, hesitated. He loved the spoon. It was a symbol of his power, of his lineage. And he had just married Amara, a beautiful woman from the northern village of Ile Ife, whose eyes sparkled like fireflies and whose laughter could charm even the grumpiest elder. Amara was not from Ogudu. She did not fear the river. She did not believe in spirits. "You are chief," she told Oba Eze one night as they sat on the veranda, watching the moon rise over the water. "You rule the land. The river is part of the land. Why should a spoon rule you?" Oba Eze smiled. "You do not understand, my love. The spoon is not just a thing, it is life." "Then let it live with us," she said, pressing her hand to his chest. "Let our child be born with it. Let him carry the spoon's blessing." Oba Eze hesitated, but Amara was radiant, pregnant, and he loved her, so he agreed. He kept the spoon. And when Amara gave birth, after a labor that lasted 3 days and 3 nights under a sky split by lightning, the child emerged different, not just healthy, not just strong, golden. His skin shimmered faintly, as if lit from within. His hair curled like strands of fine gold thread. And in his tiny fist, clenched so tightly the midwife had to pry it open, was a miniature version of the golden spoon. The village erupted. Some called it a miracle, a blessing from the ancestors, a sign that Ogudu would rise. Others, like Baba Ife, the priest, called it a curse. "The river does not give twice," he warned, his voice trembling. "It only takes. That child is not yours, Oba Eze. He is the river's." But Oba Eze dismissed him. "He is my son, and he carries the spoon. That is the will of the ancestors." The child was named Tunde, meaning he has returned, a name of hope, a name of legacy. But Baba Ife whispered to the elders, he has returned because he never left. For the first year, Tunde was the pride of Ogudu. He never cried. He smiled at strangers. He walked at 9 months. At 1 year, he could name every fish in the river, every bird in the sky. He played with the other children, but they kept their distance. There was something too perfect about him, too still, too knowing. And the spoon, always in his hand or tucked in his wrappers, grew warmer when the river was near. Amara adored him. She dressed him in the finest cloth, fed him the sweetest yams, sang him lullabies from her homeland. She believed he was a gift, a sign that the old ways were fading and a new age was dawning. But Oba Eze grew uneasy. He began to dream. In the dreams, the river called to him, not in words but in images. A golden child floating on the current, a spoon sinking into the depths, a hand reaching up from the water, not to take, but to return something. He woke in cold sweat. He consulted the diviners. They cast cowrie shells on a mat of red earth. "The child is not yours," the chief diviner said. "He is the river's payment. The spoon was never meant to be kept. It was a loan, and now the river wants its interest." Oba Eze refused to believe. "He is my son," he roared, "born of my wife in my hut under my roof." "And the spoon?" the diviner asked quietly. "Where did it come from?" Oba Eze had no answer. Then one night Tunde disappeared. Not from the village. Not from the hut. From Amara's arms. She had been rocking him to sleep, singing a soft song about the moon and the stars. She turned her head to blow out the lamp. When she looked back, the child was gone. Only the golden spoon remained on the mat, still warm to the touch. She screamed. The whole village woke. They searched the huts, the fields, the riverbank. Nothing. But Baba Ife stood at the edge of the grove, staring at the water. "He has gone to the river," he said, "to fulfill his purpose." "Nonsense," Oba Eze shouted. "He is a child. He cannot walk that far." "He is not just a child," Baba Ife replied. "He is the spoon made flesh, and the river knows its own." They found footprints the next morning, tiny, bare, leading straight to the river's edge, and in the mud, a single drop of golden blood. The village fell into silence. For 7 days, they waited. No rain, no fish. The river ran low, its current sluggish like a beast holding its breath. On the seventh night, the new moon came, and Tunde returned. He walked out of the water at dawn, naked, golden, the spoon in his hand. He was smiling, but his eyes were empty. No joy, no fear, no life. He walked straight to Baba Ife, placed the spoon in his hands, and said, "It is time." Then he lay down on the bank and closed his eyes. He did not breathe again. The village mourned, but not for long, because the very next day the river rose, not with flood, with abundance. Fish returned in schools. The water sparkled. The women's calabashes filled with clean, clear water. The crops, once withered, sprouted green shoots overnight. The spoon, now returned to the chest, felt lighter, cooler, as if it had rested. Oba Eze wept. He held Amara, who had not spoken since Tunde's return. "We were wrong," he said. "We thought we could keep what was not ours." But Baba Ife shook his head. "You were not wrong, Oba. You were human. You loved. You hoped. But the river does not care for love. It cares for balance." He placed the spoon back in the chest, wrapped it in red cloth, and sealed the chest with 7 knots of sacred rope. "It will be needed again," he said. "And when it is, someone must remember." But the people of Ogudu tried to forget. They told stories of Tunde as a hero, a child who gave himself for the village, a martyr of the river. They built a small shrine near the grove, a carved wooden figure of a child with a spoon covered in beads and cowrie shells. Mothers left offerings, honey, kola nuts, pieces of cloth, and for a time peace returned. But the river never truly forgives, and the spoon remembers. Amara, once radiant, now moved like a shadow. She wore only black. She spoke little. She spent her days at Tunde's shrine, whispering to the wooden figure, touching its golden spoon with trembling fingers. Oba Eze tried to comfort her, but he too was haunted. He dreamed of the river, of the hand, of the voice. And one night he dreamed of Tunde, older, taller, standing on the opposite bank, holding the spoon, his golden eyes fixed on him. "Father," the dream child said, "the debt is not paid." Oba Eze woke screaming. He rushed to the chest. The spoon was still there, still wrapped, still sealed, but when he touched it, it was warm, and beneath the red cloth a faint hum vibrated through his fingers. He summoned Baba Ife. "The spoon is alive," the priest said, his voice grave. "It has been fed by the river's grief, and it wants to return." "But the ritual is not due for 5 more years," Oba Eze said. "The river does not keep a calendar," Baba Ife replied. "It keeps memory, and it remembers that the first spoon was kept, that the debt was delayed. Now it wants more." "Now." "More than what?" Oba Eze demanded. "We returned the spoon. We gave back the child." "You gave back the form," Baba Ife said, "but not the spirit. The river gave you a child. You gave it back a corpse. The balance is broken." Oba Eze fell silent. Then a new fear gripped him. "Kofi," he whispered, "my son, my firstborn." Kofi, now 15, had grown rebellious. He spent his days in the market, trading with traders from the north, learning their ways. He wore trousers instead of wrappers. He spoke of cities, of schools, of a world beyond the river, and he hated the old ways. "The river is not a god," he told his father. "It's a body of water, and the spoon, a piece of metal. We don't need rituals. We need progress." Oba Eze tried to warn him, but Kofi laughed. "You're afraid of a story," he said. "Tunde was just a sickly child. The river didn't take him. He died of fever." But the night after that conversation, Kofi went to the river. Not to fish, not to pray, to challenge it. He stood on the bank, barefoot, holding a torch, and shouted into the darkness. "I am Kofi, son of Oba Eze, firstborn of Ogudu. I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of your spoon. I am not afraid of your lies." He threw a stone into the water. The splash was loud. Then silence, too much silence. The frogs stopped croaking. The crickets fell quiet. Even the wind stilled. And from the river, a voice, not the deep, ancient one from the dreams, but a child's voice, soft, sweet, familiar. Kofi froze. He knew that voice. It was Tunde's. "You called me a story," the voice said, "but I was real. I was you. I was what you could have been." "No," Kofi whispered. "You're dead." "I am the river," the voice said. "I am the spoon. I am the balance. And you are the one who refused to listen." Then the water rose, not in a wave, not in a flood. It reached for Kofi. Long, liquid fingers, cold and slick, wrapped around his ankle. He screamed. He fought. But the river pulled him in, not under, not yet. It held him at the edge, half in, half out, like a fish on a line. And from the water a figure emerged, not Tunde, but Kofi's own reflection, but twisted, golden, hollow-eyed, holding a golden spoon. "You wanted to be first," the golden Kofi said. "But first comes with a price. You are the firstborn. The spoon must be returned, and the river demands a living offering." "No," Kofi screamed. "I am not a sacrifice. I am a fact. Man! You are a son," the golden Kofi said, "and a son must obey." The real Kofi felt his body being pulled deeper. He cried out for his father. But Oba Eze was not there. He was in the hut, holding the chest, feeling the spoon vibrate like a heartbeat. Amara stood in the doorway, her eyes wide. "The river is calling," she whispered. Oba Eze opened the chest. The spoon was gone. Only the red cloth remained, and a single drop of golden liquid on the wood. He ran to the river, but he was too late. Kofi was gone. Only the torch still burning lay on the bank, and in the mud a single golden footprint. The village was in chaos. Some said Kofi had run away. Others said he'd been taken by bandits. A few, whispering in the shadows, said the river had claimed him. But Baba Ife knew the truth. "The debt is growing," he told Oba. "The river took Tunde, but not fully. It took Kofi, but not completely. The balance is still broken, and the spoon is still out there." "Where?" Oba Eze demanded. Baba Ife pointed to the river. "In the belly of the water, in the heart of the current, and it is waiting." Oba Eze fell to his knees. "What must I do?" he asked. "You must return the spoon," Baba Ife said. "But not to the river, to the source. You must go to the pool of echoes where the river Omu begins, where the first spoon was given. And there, under the new moon, you must place it on the stone of the river mother. And if I do not, the river will take everything, your village, your people, your soul." Oba Eze looked at Amara. She was silent, but in her eyes he saw not grief, but determination. "I will go," he said. "No," she said, her voice firm. "We will go." The journey to the pool of echoes was not for the faint of heart. It lay deep in the jungle, beyond the last village, where the trees grew so thick the sun barely touched the ground. The path was overgrown, marked only by ancient stones carved with symbols no one could read. The air was heavy with the scent of damp moss, wild orchids, and the musk of unseen beasts. Oba Eze, Amara, and Baba Ife traveled with only a small bag of provisions, a torch, and the chest, now empty, but still heavy with memory. They crossed streams where the water sang in low, mournful tones. They passed groves where the trees bore fruit that glowed in the dark, like lanterns. They saw shadows move between the trunks, tall figures with eyes like fireflies, watching, never speaking. On the third night, they camped near a clearing where a stone altar stood, cracked and covered in vines. "This is where the first chief met the river mother," Baba Ife said, "where the spoon was given." Amara knelt at the altar and placed a kola nut on it. "We do not ask for forgiveness," she said. "We ask for understanding." That night, Oba Eze dreamed again. But this time it was not the river. It was Tunde. He stood before him, older now, perhaps 7 years old, wearing a simple wrapper, the golden spoon in his hand. "Father," he said, "you are coming." "I must," Oba Eze said in the dream. "I must return the spoon." "The spoon is not the problem," Tun said. "The love is. You loved the spoon more than the river. You loved the power more than the people. You loved your pride more than your children." Oba Eze wept. "I was afraid," he said. "I did not want to lose what was mine." "Nothing is yours," Tunde said. "Everything is borrowed. The land, the water, the child, even the spoon." "Then what must I do?" "You must give it all back. Not just the spoon. Not just your sons. Your heart." The dream ended. Oba Eze woke with tears on his cheeks. The next day they reached the pool of echoes. It was a place of breathtaking beauty. A waterfall tumbled from a cliff of black stone, cascading into a deep, still pool that reflected the sky like a mirror. The air was cool, thick with the sound of falling water and the chirp of unseen birds. The pool was surrounded by white stones, each one carved with a single symbol: a spiral, a hand, a spoon, and in the center, on a flat stone rising from the water, stood a figure. Not a statue, a woman. She was tall, her skin the color of river clay, her hair long and tangled with reeds and water lilies. Her eyes were deep pools of black, reflecting the sky. She wore no clothes, only a necklace of fish bones and a bracelet of golden shells. She turned slowly and smiled. "You have come," she said. Her voice was the sound of water over stone, of wind through reeds, of rain on leaves. Oba Eze fell to his knees. Baba Ife bowed. Amara stood, trembling. "River Mother," Baba Ife said. We bring the spoon. The woman, Mama Noa, the river mother, stepped forward. She moved like water, her feet not quite touching the ground. You bring the idea of the spoon, she said, but the spoon is not here. Obaez looked at the chest, empty. It is in the river, he said, with my sons. Yes, she said, and it has been fed by your grief, by your guilt, by your refusal to let go. I want to let go, Obaez said. I want to return it. Then why do you still carry the chest? She asked. Why do you still believe it is yours? Obaez looked at the chest. It was heavy, not with wood, but with memory, with pride, with fear. He opened it, showed her the empty space. I have nothing, he said. Then you have everything, she said. She turned to Amara. And you, mother of the golden child, you have carried the spoon in your heart, you have mourned, you have loved, but have you released? Amara looked at the pool. She thought of Tunde's tiny body, of Kofi's scream, of the years of silence. I have not, she whispered. Then you must, the river mother said. She stepped into the pool. The water did not ripple. It parted for her, like a curtain. The spoon was never a gift of power, she said. It was a gift of trust, a covenant. The river provides. The people protect. The spoon is the symbol, but the act is the truth. She reached into the water and pulled out, not one spoon but three. The first, the original, ancient, its gold worn smooth by time. The second, Tunde's, small and perfect. The third, Kofi's, larger, but cracked at the handle. Each spoon, she said, was given to a firstborn. Each was kept. Each caused imbalance, and each must be returned, not to the river, but to the source. She placed the spoons on the flat stone. Now, she said, you must give them back, not as objects, as sacrifice. Obaez stepped forward. How? He asked. You must name what you're giving up. He looked at the first spoon. I give up the belief that power is mine to keep. He placed it on the stone. The water glowed. He looked at the second spoon. I give up the pride of my lineage, the idea that my blood is special. He placed it on the stone. The waterfall slowed. He looked at the third spoon. I give up my anger, my fear, my refusal to listen. He placed it on the stone. The pool still. Then Amara stepped forward. She looked at the spoons. I give up, she said, the hope that I could save my children by loving them too much. She placed her hand on the spoons and the river mother smiled. Now, she said, the balance is restored. She raised her arms. The water rose, not in a flood, in a cascade. The spoons floated into the air, spinning, glowing, and then they dissolved. Not into water, into light, golden light like fireflies, swirling, rising, joining the waterfall. And from the pool, two figures emerged, not golden, not hollow, real. Tunde and Kofi, alive, whole, human. Tunde smiled. Kofi looked around, confused. Father? He said. Obaeze ran to them. Amara followed. They embraced. They wept. The river mother watched. The river does not take, she said. It holds, it remembers, it waits, and when the heart is ready, it returns. She turned to the children. You are not bound by the spoon. You are bound by love, and that is stronger than any curse. She stepped back into the water. Remember this, she said. The spoon was never the treasure. The relationship was, with the river, with each other, with the world. And with that, she sank beneath the surface. The pool returned to stillness. The waterfall resumed its song. The light faded, and the village of Ogudu, far away, felt the change. The fish returned in greater numbers. The crops grew taller. The women's calabashes filled without effort. The air was sweeter. The nights were calmer. And at the shrine of Tunde, the wooden figure cracked, and from within a tiny green shoot sprouted, life. Years passed. Obaeze stepped down as chief. He chose Kofi, not because he was firstborn, but because he had learned humility. Tunde, now a quiet, thoughtful boy, became Baba Ife's apprentice, learning the old ways not out of fear, but out of respect. Amara still visited the shrine, but now she brought seeds, she planted flowers, she sang songs of thanks, and the river, it sang again, not in hunger, in peace. One evening, as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, Obaeze sat with his sons on the bank. Tunde held a simple wooden spoon, carved by his own hand. Do you remember the river, father? He asked. Obaeze smiled. I remember, he said, but not as a master, as a friend. Kofi laughed. And I remember it as a fool who thought he could outrun a river. They all laughed. Then Tunde looked at the water. The spoon is gone, he said, but the lesson remains. What lesson? Kofi asked. Tunde smiled. That nothing is yours, everything is borrowed, And the greatest treasure is not what you have, it is what you return. Obaez looked at the river, at his sons, at the sky, and he whispered a proverb, one he had not spoken in years. The river that gives life must also be fed. The child who is born with gold must one day give it back, for the earth does not keep what is not shared, and the heart does not heal until it lets go. And the river, as if in answer, rippled gently. A single golden leaf floated to the surface, then sank and was gone. Moral of the story: the greatest inheritance is not wealth, power, or bloodline, but the wisdom to know that all things are temporary. The spoon was never a gift to be hoarded. It was a reminder. Life is a cycle of giving and receiving, and true wealth lies in balance, humility, and the courage to return what was never truly yours. And so the child born with a golden spoon did not lose his blessing. He became it by giving it back. If you felt the weight of the river, if you heard the whisper of the ancestors, if you learned the lesson of the spoon, subscribe to African Haven Tales, where every story is a river, and every river has a truth to tell.